Hey, this is Craig. If you like this show and you want to support it and you want to keep it free, head on over to everyonelovesguitar.com/support. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/support. If you're a business owner and you want to increase your cash flow, or if you're a label or artist and you want to promote new music, then listen up. For information about advertising on Everyone Loves Guitar, including information on geographically targeted ads, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. If you want to buy or sell a home or investment property and you're here in the Tampa Bay area, in Hillsborough, Pinellas, or Pasco counties, then listen up. West Florida Real Estate is a local residential real estate broker that's helped over 250 Bay Area homeowners buy and sell their properties in the last 4 years alone. If you're looking to sell, you'll want to get their free report, The 7 Biggest Mistakes Homeowners Make When Hiring a Realtor. And if you're looking to buy a property, you definitely want to get your hands on the 21 Most Expensive Mistakes Tampa Home Buyers Make When Buying a Home. Each one of these reports is going to save you time and money. Inside, you'll discover the 7 most important things to consider when hiring a realtor, what to do if you're buying and selling a home at the same time, and the danger of choosing a realtor who agrees with everything you say. To get your hands on these free reports, head on over to westfloridarealestate.com. That's westfloridarealestate.com. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. I have the pleasure of hanging out with Christian Martucci today. Super cool guy, great guitar player. He's had a really long career, and he's very successful. He's got an EP coming out, so we got a lot of shit to talk about today. So, background on Christian: American guitarist, vocalist, and songwriter. Since 2015, he's been the lead guitar player for Stone Sour, replacing Jim Root. As of the beginning of this year, for Black Star Riders, taking Damon Johnson's place. Damon was on this show a while back. I think he talked about that. Christian's originally from Philadelphia, so we have that like almost New York vibe. People always say, man, when you have New York people on the show, what is it with you guys? I'm like, that's it. So he's like very close. So we're going to have a good vibe. He's also the founding member of 1,000 Watt Stare, punk bands Black President and the Strychnine Babies and the Chelsea Smiles. Punk bands have like the coolest names. You know, it's like the Strychnine Babies. It's like, it's just so classically punk, man. He was also Dee Dee Ramone's guitarist from 99 to 2002. And he appeared as Chris the Creep in Dee Dee Ramone's last book called Legends of a Rock Star, a Memoir, The Last Testament of Dee Dee Ramone. He's also known for performances with Slipknot and Stone Sour frontman Corey Taylor, and again, as a touring guitarist of Stone Sour. Christian, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, man.
We've already had like a whole interview before this.
No, it was pretty cool. Well, I still got some gas left in the tank.
Man, how did you first get started in the music business, and what was like your first, I guess, big break?
Okay, so for me, my dad was a musician. He made some records in Nashville in the 60s, and my grandfather was a musician, more of a Dean Martin type, you know. In the
really, that is so cool.
Coast.
What was your granddad's name?
Well, his name was the same as my dad's. It was Lou Martucci, but back then, you know, he was advised that his name was a little bit too ethnic.
Too ethnic, yeah. Isn't that wild?
He went by Lou Martin, actually.
That's pretty clever. Isn't it funny, like, everybody was discriminated against back then. Like, there wasn't very much wiggle room for anyone. It was so crazy, man.
It's crazy, man.
Nutty. That's really cool. And what did your dad do? Like, was he a guitar player, or?
No, he's a singer, and he had a band called the Preludes in the 60s. And as I said, they recorded a couple of records in Nashville. And you know, by the time my sister came along, she's about 8 years older than me. I mean, for better or worse, he kind of had to resort to sort of singing in cover bands.
Sure.
To sort of support the family. And then I came along much later. So music was always in the family. My first thing where I was like, okay, I know what I want to do. I remember I was very, very young, and my uncle was living with us at the time, my uncle Joey, and he was pretty upset about Ace Frehley and Peter Criss no longer being in Kiss. I remember he handed me this Kiss Alive 2 album, and I just I opened it up. I looked at it like so many other kids, but I was really young. I may have even been as young. This is pre-kindergarten. So I
Holy smokes.
remember opening up that record. I remember looking at Ace Frehley, and I saw it as the ultimate escape. I was like, that's what I want. That's what I want to do. And I never. I stayed the course, man.
And I'm assuming your dad was probably super supportive of you.
Yeah,
That's
I
really
mean, we
cool.
had we didn't have much when I was a kid at all. Yeah, but we were fortunate that we just our parents were so into music, and they never encouraged me to do anything else. My dad's the kind of guy where I could call him and be like, hey, I'm the new CEO of Apple or something, and he'd be like, so what's going on with the band?
That, you know what, man, that is wonderful. Honestly, I think because that gives you a connection that's worth more than anything else, man. That is really cool, I think.
It's true, man. And we had a lot of hard times and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, man, I have to hand it to him. I
Mm.
mean, that guy, he just worked and worked and worked, sometimes 3 jobs at a time and stuff like that, to make sure we had what we needed. And when I started playing guitar, he worked even harder to make sure I had things like guitar strings, and sometimes before we had the bare necessities.
That's
And
really cool, man. But look, you've done the same thing.
yeah,
Yeah, man. So that's really cool. It's like paying it, it's I I think that we talked earlier before we started about how a lot of people don't realize how tough it is to be a successful musician. And I really respect when just your dad's story and in your story, like you said, up until you were in your 30s, you had a full-time gig, and whenever you got off tour. And I think that's incredibly difficult. I don't think the average person can do that by a long shot.
well, I never had anything to fall back on,
Mm.
so I did whatever I had to do to survive. Very similar to my dad, because I
Mm.
did not go to school. I did not do, and the things that are typically required of you know
Yeah, but you did but man, and this is what I've learned from interviewing so many musicians. I've learned how important, like there's not to get all woo woo, not to get all California, I should say, because I'm from the Bronx, and I always feel like, okay, I'm stepping into the West Coast when I talk about it. But it's weird shit. But I think there is some sort of alignment that happens when you are so tied with your sort of mission of what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, I know it sounds strange, but I can't remember any time that I've been on this earth that I didn't want to do exactly what I'm doing right now.
Yeah,
And
that's really
it's
special, man.
definitely not for the faint of heart, man. I've had a lot of letdowns. I've had a lot of band members die on me. I've had all kinds of crazy things happen, but I think it's the difference between doing this because you want to be successful, or doing this because you don't have a choice. And for me, there's really no choice. Playing music is not a choice to me. It's my it's my life. I couldn't imagine not doing it. I mean, even no matter the worst jobs I've ever had in my life and all of this stuff, I never let it sort of discourage me. Um,
Dude, I have so much respect for you and for everybody that I've interviewed that feels that way. It's just so cool. It's a really, really commendable.
yeah, you do this because you have to. It's not because you want to. Like, I feel like it was almost like, you're chosen for certain things in life,
Yeah.
regardless of what you believe in. And you know, it's your responsibility to live up to what you've been chosen to do. and it's not always pretty, and it can be a very hard road, but you just hang in there, man, and you know eventually something happens.
So what was your first big break? What was the first thing that like sort of happened that you said, okay, I'm on my way?
Honestly, for me, it was and I had I'd reached a dead end in Philly. I was not in the best health, and I knew that I'd gone as far as I could where I was working in this factory, and I remember like standing outside on the dock, like working for minimum wage or whatever, and staring across the Schuylkill River in Philly. And
How you pronounce it? Is that SCH something? SC some? Yeah, I never knew how you pronounce it. I always
man, only a person from the East Coast could actually spell that.
XKY or something. I never knew how to pronounce that. Okay.
It's a long one.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
but I just remember looking out over the Schuylkill River, like, please, like, there's got to be something more than this. And I remember I was trying to get an apartment, and I got turned down like 3 or 4 times because I didn't make enough money. So I took what I had, which was, I had $800, and that was it. That's all the money I had to my name. I bought a one-way ticket on this airline called Tower Air, which was a Middle Eastern airline that I think flew from um, somewhere to the Middle East, but it would stop in LA to fuel up. So I got a really cheap ticket on this airline, which no longer exists, and I remember landing in LA, and all I had was a suitcase and one guitar. And in that suitcase, I had my Marshall head, which I took all the tubes out of and rolled up in my clothes.
This is an amazing story, man. Go
I
ahead.
got off the plane, and I was like, man, what is going to happen to me?
So you literally had no destination. You just said,
No
this is like, I'm
destination.
putting all my chips on blue here or on black or red or whatever.
I knew that a childhood friend of mine, this guy Jeremy White, who had a band with Ronnie Youngkins from the band Kicks.
Hmm.
I knew that he was living in LA, so I contacted him. He was very nice to agree to allow me to crash on his couch for a couple of weeks, right? So he took me out to this place in North Hollywood called the bake the what was it? It was the Baked Potato.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a famous place. Yeah.
Probably still there.
It
And
is. It's the top jazz fusion club around.
yeah, there was this open jam night, and I remember like Bruce Kulick was there, Rick Nielsen, it was like Gilby Clark, it was like all these people, and I was like, man, wow, this place really has a lot going on, And he just kept saying, hey, my friend's really good, you should have him come up and play a song or whatever. I was like, dude, don't do this to me. And next thing you know, I'm up there, and I remember I played a couple of Kiss songs with Bruce, and I believe it was Brian Tishy on drums from Billy Idol's band. I can't remember. And this guy Stefan on bass, and who became a really close friend of mine still to this day. And I remember after I got up and jammed with these guys, I ended up staying up there for like an hour, man, just playing nonstop with these guys. And then the
God,
next,
that had to feel so good.
it was amazing, man. It was incredible because I was a punk rock kid from Philly, but I always had classic rock roots.
Mm-hmm.
Knew all the songs. I grew up playing along to Kiss albums, and everything from Kiss to the Dead Boys to um, I think there's a lot of similarities between a lot of those bands that people don't realize. I mean, it's very fast to the point rock and roll, and you know so I ended up jamming with these guys for a while. I was surprised I knew as many of the songs as I did, and the next day I started getting phone calls about, hey, so and so needs a guitar player, so and so needs a bass player. And at the time it was 1999, so everybody was playing sort of like the new metal stuff,
Sure.
which was not my bag at the I mean, as I said, I was more into like classic rock, everything from Zeppelin to Kiss and the Ramones and the Dead Boys and punk rock, 70s punk rock.
Sure.
So I was just like, yeah, it's just not my thing. It's not my thing. And then I got this call like, hey, Dee Dee Ramone's looking for a guitar player.
Holy.
You would think I would have been smart and I would have joined like, some up and coming new metal band, and whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, man, you got to do what's in your heart. I truly believe that people can see right through you if you're
and musicians especially, I can tell you now from, I don't need to tell you, but yes, you're 100% right. That comes through the authenticity, and your intent is not, music's not going to be covered up by that. It's going to be exposed.
And sure enough, a few weeks after landing in LA, I had to get an emergency passport, and I was on my way to South America
with Dee Dee Ramone. Dude, how you must have felt like $1 million being a punk guy.
I mean, he was a god to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I had the every album. I mean, I tried to look like Joey Ramone when I was in high school. Long black hair and the glasses and everything, and so it was a trip, man. I mean, especially considering that a very short time before that,
you're like homeless basically.
Yeah, I'm driving forklifts of frozen beef into this giant freezer, and just sweeping up a warehouse, staring at the river. Just
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
What a story, dude. What was that experience like playing? How long did that was from, 99 to 2002. What was that like? What was it like? Tell me a funny or unusual.
Well, I played with him until he died. So I got the call to go down there, and I had known, some info about Dee Dee just from living in New York when I was a kid. I remember specifically asking, he knows I'm coming down there, right? Because I knew he was very weird about new people and, all that kind of stuff. They're like, oh, yeah, sure. He knows. Just, show up.
Famous last words.
I walk into this room, right? And Dee Dee Ramone's standing there, and he turns around and looks at me. He had no idea I was coming down there. And he looks at me and he goes, so what, are you going to try to play guitar or something? I was like,
accent totally down.
Yeah, I was like, well, I'm gonna try. And he goes, all right, so we plug in, and I'll never forget, it was those Line 6 pods that just come out. You remember those things?
I don't know them, but I've heard a bunch of them from you guys.
Yeah, it was like a special effects processor thing. It was like in the shape of a kidney, and but anyway, he had one of those things with him, but he only used it as a tuner. He didn't know that you could do other stuff with it. So he's like, "All right, let me tune up," and he plugs into this.
That's hilarious, man.
Whatever, and next thing you know, he's like, Rockaway Beach, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we start playing. And I'm looking over to my right as I'm playing, this super fast down pick, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm playing Rockaway Beach with the guy who wrote the fucking song. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. You can curse on here, just FYI.
I try not to.
Okay.
Honest with you. I mean, I try not to because I don't around my kids at all, So
wait till they're teenagers, man. That will go out the window.
Yeah, I mean, I just sorry, I had to turn my phone off.
Okay, man.
But I could not believe it. And then he's like, all right, you better sing the next song now. And I was like, and he's like, Chinese rocks, so we start playing Chinese rocks. I start singing, and he's like, that was really nice. He's like, okay, you better sing the next song now. And I was like, and I remember I learned 33 songs. I mean, I knew them in my head, but I learned 3 songs in less than 24 hours before.
That's a sick amount of material. And even though people say, well, they're only 2.5 minutes long, 33 of anything is not easy in that time frame. That's insane.
I'll tell you what, a lot of people think those songs are easy, and maybe they are if you play them incorrectly, but if you actually do the down pick, like the way you're supposed to do it, um, it a lot of those parts are similar, but they're not. So it's a lot of information to
Hell yeah, 33 songs is.
take in. But I was young, I was determined, and I made it happen. So that's how that happened. And I sat in a van with him for a very long time, and that was my introduction into the serious touring thing. Because before that, my punk bands and stuff, we would just go sort of like the circuit that you do on the East Coast,
Sure.
from New York State down to like
Maryland or something.
Yeah, Virginia Beach or something. So I'd certainly never been out of the country. It didn't have a passport, didn't have, so it was a big eye opener. I got to see the world for the first time, and that was my I guess my leader.
Very cool, man. That's a great story. And it's amazing that you got that call from playing a gig at the Baked Potato, because I don't know what it used to be like, but now it's like, for the most part, fusion, jazz/fusion. I've talked to loads of guys. I haven't talked to anybody that played even classic rock there.
I know. I mean, it was a very brief time. Maybe it lasted a few months or whatever. And these guys had these jams there, and you'd see everybody would play these things. Slash, like all these people. So I mean, it was pretty cool. I've never been like a big cover band sort of guy, but I mean, to get up and be able to play with some of those people, especially having come where I'd come from, merely weeks before, it was unbelievable.
Man, I got to believe you call your dad and he's like over the moon for you.
Yeah. He was really excited because, my dad, believe it or not, I mean, he loved the Ramones. I mean, he was a big Beach Boys fan and stuff like that. So, I mean,
but just happiness for you because you love them so much. That had to be so cool.
It all made sense to him, and it was very cool.
How'd you hook up with Corey Taylor and Stone Sour?
Oh man. Okay. So I had so Dee Dee had passed away, and that was very, very, very hard on everybody in my sort of immediate circle. And I had this this punk rock cover band in LA called Shithead, and we
another classic punk rock name.
We named it after the dog and the jerk.
Oh, right. Oh, Shithead. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And we used the Motorhead logo, only it said Shithead.
That's funny.
So, and there were some cool people in that band. I mean, it was Greg Hudson, the guitarist of Bad Religion and Circle Jerks,
very cool.
We had all these people. Our bass player, Jason, was friends with Corey, and a lot of people probably aren't going to believe this, but I honestly don't care. I had only heard of Slipknot. I didn't know any of the members of the band or anything. I mean, you have to understand, I was in a very different world. I was in Ramones' world.
That's easily believable. I mean, no, that's not.
I was in Ramones' world.
You can't know everything, man, because like many of the people I interview, I didn't know their band. I mean, you just can't know everything.
Yeah, I mean, my influences by the time 99 to 2002 rolled around were pretty much solidified. I wasn't really listening to too much new music, Yeah. I mean, I was in a van with Dee Dee Ramone. I was listening to Motown records and the New York Dolls and stuff like that. I didn't care about what was going on. So, and around this time, not a lot of people really knew what the members of Slipknot even looked like with their masks off or whatever. Sure. And I remember we did the Shithead show, and my friend Jason was like, hey, is it okay if my friend comes up and sings a song? And they're like, yeah, sure. And these shows were a lot of fun. I mean, they were relatively packed every Wednesday night or whatever night it was we did it. And, this guy got up and, you know, opened his mouth, and it was just like, we did a Black Flag song, and I was like, oh my God, this guy sounds awesome, and we kind of struck up a friendship there. Our drummer at the time was Roy Mayorga, and
Yeah, why do I know that name?
he was actually the drummer in Stone Sour.
Yeah, okay.
He was in the New York band's Nausea, and he was on the first few Soulfly albums when they first started, and he was an old friend of mine from when I was a teenager living in New York. So we all ended up in LA at the same time, and we started playing together. And Corey got up and sang, and he must have liked whatever he heard that night, because systematically, three of the on that stage ended up in Stone Sour.
That's so cool, man.
But so anyway, we kind of, I don't want to say we were like this, but we were very friendly or whatever. And, I thought he was super cool. And then Roy ended up in Stone Sour, and I was like, whoa, I was like, that guy that got up and sang with us is the singer of Slipknot. Like, it didn't,
yeah,
register to me. And, so, we'd kept in contact over the years and all of that stuff. And then, they had a tour in 2014 booked, and for whatever reasons, Jim Root was not going to do the tour, and I remember
that was like perfectly politically correct that you said that, by the way.
Well, it's
no, I don't care. No, it was great. It was good. Like, you handled that like so cool, so smooth. That was like whoosh, polished.
Well, the thing is, people think there's all this like, anger and all this kind of stuff.
Who gives a shit?
The reality is, I can't control these situations. I wasn't there. It's not my story to tell.
Yeah, who cares about that?
It's like, I don't know why that happened, but at any rate, the idea was I was supposed to fill in for this tour, and then Slipknot or Stone Sour was going to take this long break, and Slipknot was going to fire back up again. So I'm assuming that Jim was writing songs for the fifth Slipknot album, because it's common knowledge that he wrote a lot of the riffs and whatever on that Slipknot album. So I'm laying in bed with my wife watching TV, and about a few days before that, I was like, man, things just aren't working out, just one dead end band after another. It wasn't looking good. The future wasn't looking bright. At this point I was in my 30s. I had done some stuff that I was proud of, for sure, but not something that I would sort of be able to just leave home. I was getting too old to jump in a van again.
Totally get that, man.
No money, and nothing. So, I was questioning whether or not how I was going to continue being a musician. I had kids at this point, and as I said, I was working, and so they texted me, and they didn't tell me, hey, can you do this? They were like, hey, so here's the deal. Learn these songs. You got to come to Iowa in 3 weeks, and whatever. And I was like, you're joking, right? I turned around, I looked at my wife. I was like, well, looks like I got some songs.
Looks like I got a gig. Yeah, man. That is, what a good story, dude.
We started the tour, and again, for whatever reasons, shortly into that tour, it was like, how would you feel about sort of doing this kind of forever sort of thing? I was like, well, okay,
Did they know you were a writer at that time as well?
I don't think so, man.
So that must have been a huge like bonus for them once they're like, oh shit, and you write really good songs.
Yeah, it was interesting. the thing about that situation that a lot of people might not know is like Roy and I's relationship, the drummer Roy, goes back like almost 25 years.
He's from Philly as well?
Well, he'd lived in Philly for a while, so we had a lot of mutual friends, but we initially met in New York City back in the what I consider to be in my lifetime the old punk rock days. And
You must have been living in Lower East Side, right?
well, I was a little bit. I kind of moved around a bit,
Yeah.
like back then. I loved wherever I could.
Yeah, that was the spot though for where the punk shit was happening.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very lawless time. It was an entire area of New York City that was basically run by punk.
Yeah, totally.
And things were affordable. There was a lot of culture back.
Yeah,
There was a lot of bad stuff too. But,
it was horrible, but it was a lot of cool stuff too, man.
It was pretty dangerous back then, and
totally.
In a lot of respects, and so whatever. And Johnny Chow, who's the bass player of Stone Sour, worked at a place at a bar called Three of Cups back then, and he had actually been my boss at one of my jobs.
Oh my God! So this is really like sort of small world stuff.
It was, and I had known Corey. The only person I didn't know in the band at that point was Josh, the other guitar player, and we hit it off. The tour was great, as it would have been because I had already had a relationship with a lot of these guys for most of my adult life at that point. So it didn't seem weird to me that I was coming into it. People were like, "Oh, you replaced Jim Root," and all of this stuff, and to me, it was just like, my friends need me. I'm going to help them out. I love playing music with all of these guys so to me, it wasn't strange. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I was not all that familiar with their catalog.
That's pretty common though. How would you, I mean, if you're
for their success, because these are friends of mine that are doing all this awesome stuff or whatever. But, as I said, I mean, when you reach a certain age, you're into what you're into,
right. Your musical vocabulary, your listening vocabulary is,
yeah. I mean, it wasn't until I started learning the songs that I could hear what a fantastic guitar player Jim is, was and is, and so that was cool. It was very cool to do that. I didn't understand at the time the sort of repercussions of being an unknown person, replacing somebody of that magnitude. But at the end of the day, some people, I mean, you could have grabbed Eddie Van Halen by his collar and pulled him out of 1977 and threw him up on that stage, and people would have still complained about it, So, I mean, the thing is, you can't really get wrapped up so much in what people say on social media and stuff, because all I saw every night was going out on stage in front of thousands of extremely happy people that were going crazy for this band.
That's cool, man.
That was my reality. My reality wasn't like, the guy sending me the message on Instagram, "Hey, you dickhead," I mean, that wasn't my reality. I mean, still to this day, nobody's ever said anything derogatory to my face about anything I've done with that band. And, how I ended up writing it was like, okay, guys, it's time to start working on the records, to start writing some songs. I took that very seriously. So I sat down and I demoed probably like, I don't know what it was, like 12 songs or whatever, thinking like, maybe they'll want to use one of them or whatever. We ended up recording all that crap, and
wow. So you were a major asset. You became a major.
I don't know.
No, I know you're not going to be like, yeah, I became a major, but I mean, that's the truth. That's really cool. I'm really happy
I took it seriously.
Man, I know
and it was because I wanted to make these guys happy, and B, I kind of wanted to make my mark, for better or worse, know. I mean, my experience with Stone Sour was starting to play with them in 2014, releasing this album that was #1 on several charts, and #2 in places like Australia, and it was I think the highest charting album they'd had in Canada and the UK maybe. And before you know it, man, we had this #1 song that was it was #1 on radio for 7 weeks, and that was going up against bands like Foo Fighters and Metallica, who had just put out singles at the same time. So for it to stick for that long was, I mean, like I said, man, for that to happen to you in your 30s or whatever, I mean, it's especially coming from like a punk rock background and all of that kind of stuff, it was shocking.
No, but your work ethic is really good, and I could tell because we messed up all the appointments, and you were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this," and I was like, "Wow, man, this guy is really, really like when he makes a commitment," and it was no big deal. I mean, shit happens, right? But I was impressed with like how to me, I just connected that as, wow, this guy makes a commitment. He's really he's honoring that, and that says a lot about someone's character, man. How you do one thing is how you do everything, right? And so I knew right away. I said, wow, this guy is a serious pro.
I don't know any other way to work, man. I don't have anybody to call if I fall on my ass. I can't, I mean, and I learned that from a very early age. My parents, as supportive as they were musically, I could never call them and be like, I need a car, I need this, I need that. It's impossible.
Wasn't an option. Yeah.
And not an option.
I'm the same way. And I always have the best chemistry with people like that, because there's a certain independence, and it allows you to have a bit of a, not in a condescending way, but I don't give a fuck attitude, because you sort of know that everything's going to work out because that's what I do.
Yeah. And I mean, getting back to the writing process, I mean, I don't want to like take too much credit for anything, but I mean, some of that stuff was, our drummer Roy would send me just one guitar riff or something like that. And I would take that guitar riff, or maybe Johnny Chow would send me a bass riff or something, and I would hear immediately where to put them into stuff that I was already working on. So it was really cool. It was a collaborative thing in a very non-traditional way.
But it sounds like you had the arranger, you were the arranger of all these things, which is like, what makes it happen,
Yeah, in some sense, Roy had called me a chef,
Yeah, here's all the ingredients, dude. We don't, make a great tasting meal. That's fucking a great analogy, actually.
Italians can cook, man.
That's it, man. There you go. That's such a good story, man. I'm so happy that's how it all worked out, man. Really, especially because you were in your 30s, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of crap that happened in between Dee Dee Ramone and Stone Sour, but I mean, that was just and it still is. It's an unbelievable experience,
Yeah, man. What a good journey.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Did you know? You must have played with Brian Quinn.
Brian Quinn
from Philly. He plays with Candlebox now, but he grew up in Philly in the punk scene. He might be he's got to be around the same age. Brian Quinn.
I got to be honest with you, man. It doesn't
ring a bell. Interesting.
Not within my circle of friends, but we were pretty dirty. Nasty punk rock.
Yeah. But most of the guys that are hardcore into punk, that's the thing, man. That's the vibe.
Well, when life's not working out for you, you can either become a better, horrible person, or you can channel it into something positive. And even though I know it sounds ridiculous, like how can all these negative, fast, pissed off songs be positive? They were therapy.
Oh, it's cathartic, man.
not just the band members, but all the disillusioned kids and Philly and stuff that, really had no, things were different back then, man. There was a lot of people, for a lot of people, there was no way out,
Mm.
and they would go to these shows, and these shows would just explode. I mean, we would play squat houses, we would play, you know, anywhere. And it was, I mean, we we self-destructed before we could make it out of the sort of tri-state area. But we definitely, I mean, if you ask anybody in Philly that was in the punk rock scene then and now, they'll tell you, we certainly made an impression. We made a mark.
And what band was that?
That was the Brick Nine Babies.
Yeah, okay.
And we were just, we were just kids or whatever. But I mean, we, you know, a lot of the bands at the time were the sort of big Mohican,
Yeah.
British influenced punk bands, and we were more like akin to the Dead Boys and stuff like that, just ferocious, just nasty American punk rock, because that's what we were,
Yeah.
I'd never been to England at that point. I mean,
no, man, it's the scene.
I love some of those bands, but I never really had a desire to mimic any of them. So I mimicked what I loved. That's what you do when you first start playing. You find what you love to do and the bands that you love, and you sort of emulate them until you get your own style.
Hey, hindsight 2020, all those decisions were good.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean,
well,
maybe
because look at the journey, man.
Yeah, it's been a lot of surprises, a lot of things that I never would have expected in a million years. I mean, it's so anti everything. I mean, even playing with Dee Dee Ramone was an anti statement to what was going on with popular music with people my age at the time.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what, I'm gonna go play Ramone songs. And I mean, I always did the exact opposite of what was going on. I mean.
No, I hear it. It feels good when you have that. When that's your mentality, you have that. I totally get that, man. You. There's a sense of, like I said, you could do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to give you any decent paychecks or anything. But again, why do you do this?
Yeah.
I don't know why you do this, man.
And just talk about last one, Black Star Riders. How'd you hook up with those guys?
Oh, okay. So, Jay Rustin, who produced the Stone Sour album, he has become a very good friend of mine over the years. And when Damon had told Ricky Warwick, the singer, that he no longer, that he needed to stop, or again, I don't really know the circumstances.
Well, I had Damon on here. I think he basically said it was time for me to launch my own career. He wanted to do his own.
Man, he is a really sweet guy, man.
Yeah, really good guy.
But and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. But so Jay had told Ricky, well, Stone Sour's off for a long time. What about Christian Martucci? And
awesome, man.
I had already been a fan of the band because, being a fan of classic rock, how can you not love Thin Lizzy? And I just thought it was amazing that somebody from that time period could be releasing these great albums now that are so just fresh sounding. And I love Black Star Riders, a great band.
Yeah.
So Ricky called me up, and and I have a lot of respect for him, because it wasn't just like, oh, you're in Stone Sour, you'll be fine, just come into the band. They actually made me do a audition video.
Wow.
And because I wasn't home, I was on the road, and so I sent in the video, and they were like, you got it, and I was like awesome, so. And a very similar way to the Stone Sour album, Scott Gorham started sending me some of his riffs. Ricky started sending me some of his. I started putting everything together while Stone Sour was on tour with Ozzy, right?
Holy shit, man. So you're like...
I would be in the dressing room.
You're humping it here, man.
Making demos. Pretty much up until the point that we went on stage. The other guys in the band were looking at me like, you're nuts, dude. We're like, well, whatever, you know. So I did that, and then you know, 3 days after I got back from the end of the Stone Sour tour, Ricky Warwick, the singer, flew up to my house from he lives in Los Angeles. I do not. And he he flew to my house, and I had him in this room sing on all the demos. We sent him to the record label, to Nuclear Blast, and to our managers, and obviously to Jay, who was going to be producing it. And they loved what they heard. And a couple of months later, I flew to LA. Walked in the room. There's, you know, Scott Gorham. There's the guys in the band. Had never met him before. I made sure to learn a few of their songs from the back catalog so that we at least break the ice by playing something comfortable for them. And then we just started digging into the new stuff. Went in the studio, banged it all out the same way Stone Sour did. We recorded it all in the same room, and added a couple of bells and whistles later. Not much, but you know, we ended up with this album that I'm beyond proud of. I'm incredibly proud of it. I'm really looking forward to recording it. And yeah, that's my black
So
story.
cool, man. That's really cool. That's another State of Grace.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very
Comes
cool.
out in September, and you'll have to forgive me because I don't know the exact date right now.
No, that's totally cool.
It's out there. I mean, if you Google it or whatever, it's out there. But you know,
Good stories, man. Thank you for sharing that. I'm so happy your journey worked out like that, man. It's good to hear that ending, man. Very cool.
It's ridiculous, man.
And then you got a solo EP coming out.
Oh yeah,
August. Talk about that, man.
Well, I had all these songs that didn't fit in either band, and you know, I wasn't going to start a new band or anything, but I really liked them. They're cool, and you know, I hadn't sang in a long time, so that was fun. And I basically I had demoed the songs the same way I demoed everything else, and I sent the tracks to my friend Carl Rockfist, who's the drummer in Michael Monroe's band for a lot of years now. And we were in a band together years ago, and you know, just great guy. And he's based in Sweden, so he sent me back these drum tracks, and I was like, all right, game on. This stuff's awesome, you know. In a lot of ways, it goes back to my sort of more punk root. You know, some of the stuff's pretty fast and, you know, angry and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, let me see, who am I going to get to play bass on this? So my childhood friend, I was in my very first bands with, is a guy named AC Slade, and he played in the Murder Dolls with Joey Jordison from Slipknot, which, you know, try to figure that out, how we both ended up. And that was really bizarre because we're both kids from Philly, you know. And so at any rate, he had done that. He'd been in Joan Jett and the Black Hearts for several years. He was the bass player in Joan Jett. And now he's in the Misfits, the original Misfits, with Glenn Danzig and Dave Pardo, Jerry Only, Doyle. He's the rhythm guitarist in that band. So I asked him.
He plays rhythm guitarist with them, and he's a bass player too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Multifaceted. So I sent him the track. So I was like, dude, just throw some bass on this and get it back to me. And he did. I wish we could have all recorded it together, but when you listen to it, it doesn't sound like, I mean, you can clearly hear the chemistry between the three of us. And oddly enough, Carl actually played in Danzig too, the drummer.
That's nuts, man.
Back in, I don't remember when it was, 2000 something.
Man, you know who's got a similar journey to you? Not similar, but he had some, like, he was just came in town. He was out of work, homeless for a minute. Do you know Ace Von Johnson?
I do. Yeah.
He's it's not like it's exact, but there's similarities in it.
No, there is for sure. I mean, he's in LA Guns now.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a nice guy, man.
Really, really nice guy.
Yeah.
So, what were any outside of the financial and the I want to use the right word, the frustration of butting your heads up against stuff that, man, no matter how hard you're working, it's just things just don't seem to be going your way. Were any other low points that you had to deal with during
Well,
life, and how did you get through them?
yeah, there's some bad ones. I mean, Dee Dee Ramone dying of a drug overdose was really awful. You know, how I got through that was starting another band. Um, I, uh, grief can do some pretty incredible things with music. And a big part of my story, which we've left out, was right after Dee Dee Ramone. I got a phone call from Todd Youth, who was another New York guy, and he had been in. He has played with everybody from Glenn Danzig to Glen Campbell. I mean,
That's
yeah, he
pretty cool.
started out he was the original bass player in Agnostic Front when he was 12 years old.
Get out.
Yeah, he was
12 years old?
12 years old. He was in Warzone. He was in Murphy's Law for years. So another guy with a very strong punk rock pedigree. He and I started a band, and 3 weeks later, we had a record deal on Capitol Records,
Wow.
and we recorded an entire album with the producer Michael Beinhorn, who did Super Unknown from
Yeah.
Soundgarden.
He's a very big producer.
Oh man, he was the great. And our record label was terrible, and the president got into some kind of argument with Michael Beinhorn about something that had nothing to do with our band, and refused to put the album out. Our A&R guy at the time really pushed him to allow us to redo it, so we re-recorded the exact same album again
With a
with
different producer.
Jerry Finn, who did all the Blink 182 albums and Morrissey and all that stuff. And he's no longer with us, but he was a great producer too.
Holy shit. You hear that thunder?
No, I
Oh
didn't.
my God. It sounds like, freaking God is throwing lightning bolts down, right? And smacking his hands together right over my head. Holy shit.
But yeah, man, Capitol Records had this stranglehold on us for 2 years, man, where we couldn't tour, we couldn't do anything. I mean, they kept putting us back in the studio, and after a while, man, I remember we were on tour with or not on tour, but we had a handful of shows with Social Distortion, and I we're just waiting and waiting for them to put this album out, man. And I remember being on tour with Social Distortion, and our bass player couldn't afford a pack of cigarettes, man. And I was just like, I was like, this just can't. We can't keep going like this. And then, you know, uh, Capitol, there were some changes made, and then a lot of bands got dropped, and we were one of them, man. And that was after sitting around and.
And they spent money to record you twice. And
Dude, they spent over $1 million on that band.
you
And
didn't release
you know how
anything.
much money each member of the band got?
I'm going to say zero.
Well, you're close. When we first signed the deal, we each got $7,500, which sounds like a lot of money.
Oh, not over a 2-year period, it doesn't.
It does not. So in the year of 2005, I looked at my taxes.
Oh my God.
For the entire year, I made $7,500, and you have to, I know it's like, or no, maybe it was 2004, whatever, whenever it was. Um, you have to understand. Well, why didn't you just go get a job and this, that, and the other thing? It's like, why? Because these guys kept putting us in the studio, uh, and the days in the studio were long, man. They were like 12 months at a time, or not 12 months, but however long it was. And then they would send us out on tour. We toured with the New York Dolls. We social
Doing some big, like really killer tours.
Yeah, but we had no album to support. And
So there's nothing to sell.
so there was a great buzz going on about you guys, like, okay, just put the album out already, you know, and it never happened. So that dissolved, and actually,
Oh man.
fortunately, last year or this year, Todd Youth, the other guitar player in the band, he passed away from I don't want to say, but so that was pretty horrible too. So,
Sorry, man.
so
That's crazy.
again, how do you get through this stuff? Some people use drugs, some people use alcohol, some people, yeah, everybody has a different grieving process. For me, I sit in here in this room, and then for some reason, a bolt of lightning will hit me, and I will write a ton of songs, and over about a 2 week period. It's almost like an exorcism, and and
Yeah,
then
in a good way.
it stops, and then uh, I figure out what to do with these songs. You know, like, hey Corey, check this out, or you know, hey Ricky, check this out. You know, so that's how I deal with that, man. And you know, uh,
Yeah, but
life kind of went on for me when music wasn't working out. You know, I ended up getting married. I ended up having a family, and to me, being, you know, some strung out junkie or some raging alcoholic or whatever, I mean, I'm not gonna, you know, everybody makes mistakes here and
sure.
there. I you know, but when that becomes your habit and becomes your entire lifestyle or whatever, it's like I have people that count on me now to get out there and do something.
Yeah.
Now I have two reasons to play music, you know. Um, one reason is to make sure that I provide my family with what they need, and you know, sometimes then some. And the other thing is, like I said before, man, you know, it's all about why you do this.
Yeah.
Uh, I didn't do this to make it. I did it because, like I said, man, it's like an exorcism. You know, I have these things in me, and the only way that I can get them out is to record them.
Man, I really honor and respect all that stuff, man. And I'm so glad you sticking through shit is not easy, because it's, you know, sometimes
I
you're like, give me a sign, man, give me a sign. And sometimes the sign comes, but sometimes it does not.
had every possible thing happen to me that could happen to somebody that would make them walk away from this. Every possible thing, people dying, people horrible record deals, you know,
That's just awful, that story. Could
shady everything, just the worst of the worst. And for whatever reason, man, I'm not gonna lie, I got upset at times, but I never got discouraged. If anything, and it continues to fuel the fire. Every time I pick up my guitar, I know this sounds like a little heavy or whatever, but I see that little kid um, in a trailer park or in a small apartment or whatever that I was. And when I opened up that Kiss album for the first time, I saw an escape, and not an escape from reality, but an escape from what was beating me down.
Yeah, an escape from that environment, a way to do something
Yeah,
different.
you know, not having money, getting beat up by other kids, made fun of. You know, I mean, the kids in the '80s were pretty harsh, man.
Oh yeah, I know.
People understand, you know, unless you were around back then. I don't think people understand. You know, when you're that one kid in a school that has the hand-me-down clothes and all of that kind of stuff,
Oh yeah, kids are brutal, man.
it was harsh, man. It wasn't the same type of sort of politically correct environment that we
Oh,
live.
now you go back there, you'd be a hero.
There's bullying now and stuff, but it's like I think it's in a different. It's just it's very different. You know, it wasn't
No, I,
online back then. It was directly to your face, and it
yeah.
was brutal.
No, it was tough. It was tough growing up, man.
Yeah.
Wow. This is a good segue. You mentioned that you pick up your guitar. Let's talk about some gear for a few minutes.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
know,
Let's lighten things up.
yeah, I know we're in a room full of guitars, man. What's your go-to guitar, and what other two or three guitars would round out your, you know, your top few?
Okay. Let's see here.
And yeah, man, bring them over. I'd love to see them if it's not
Okay,
inconvenient
so
at all. This is a good part of the show, man. And I'm glad we're doing videos now. There you go.
That's my signature guitar.
Okay, so Christian's got a signature Dean guitar.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you something.
Wait a minute, are they going to take that away from you? Because the spider, that's your tattoo, man.
With the Liberty Bell on the back, and that's the only way you'd really know it was a signature guitar. So in a lot of ways, I mean, of course, this is a go-to guitar because it's, I designed it to what I like, So there's this one. Yeah, I mean, you can.
Is that going to stay in production because they're being sued now by Gibson for flying?
I think that's all water under the bridge now.
Oh,
I
it's
I
over.
don't
Yeah.
think Gibson really has any legs to stand on, but yeah, man, it's in production. There's a USA model. There's an import model. I'm not trying to sell it. I mean, if you
No,
like,
man. Hey, man, I'll try to sell it.
you know.
Let me ask you a question. Have you always played Flying V's?
You know what? Believe it or not, I got my first one back in '93.
Oh, so you've been playing quite a while.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it got broken. I can't remember exactly what happened to it, but I mean, it was a long time ago. But yeah, so I I love them. They're comfortable. I mean, I don't know if you can see, but I have these long, like,
Yeah, you got really long arms, man.
so they're very comfortable for me to play live.
It's so cool that the decal is your tattoo. What is that? If it's not comfortable to say, what is the significance of that tattoo? But like I said, if it's not comfortable to say, it's totally cool.
Well, my friend Pat Kim, who's a tattoo artist, he did this thing. There's a small group of us, and we all got these Black Widow tattoos. And instead of the red spot, you got something in there that represented where you came from. So for him, he has the LA thing on there.
Okay.
And I'm the only one that has this one out of that crew, but I thought it'd be cool to put the Liberty Bell on the back. And the reason I put it on the guitar and stuff is I just think it's kind of cool. I think it's important to remember where you came from.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because that, plays a big role in where you're going.
It should anyway. As long as it's not limiting, because a lot of times people come from bad stuff and they're like limited by that. They don't, they're anchored to that. Like to me, I'm kind of like you. I use it as righteous indignation to
fuel.
Yeah, right.
Tackle and fuel.
Exactly, fuel, man.
I got so moving on. This.
Oh man.
This is another go-to guitar, and as you can see, it's got some miles on it. This does not come out on the road. I only take the Deans out on the road. This is
that's a beautiful guitar, man.
A 1979 Les Paul Custom Silver Burst. It's and I mean, I'm not just saying this. I mean, I've had several, I've had producers, engineers tell me this is the best sounding Les Paul they've ever heard.
I love Silverburst, man. And that 79, that has got to weigh a ton.
Yeah, it's not light, man.
Wow. Now, wait a minute. Doesn't Ace have one of those as well?
I don't know. I don't know if he has. I don't know if he has the same year or even.
I had someone else on the show who had a Burst, and I thought it was a guy who played in got his roots in punk as well.
Yeah, but it's
gorgeous guitar, man.
It's great, man. It's just it's awesome. So moving along, I'm gonna grab just a couple more.
Yeah, man. Do your thing. Thank you. I see your gold or platinum record on the wall as well, which is badass.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not mine. That's actually a platinum Kiss album.
Oh, what is that?
This is a 1978 BC Rich Mockingbird.
Oh my God.
And this guitar is actually the type of guitar that I really learned how to play on. So it's very near and dear to me. And again, these guitars do not come on the road.
So let me ask you this. I literally read an article about this guitar like within the last week. That's kind of worth a lot, that guitar, because it's a pretty iconic.
Yeah, it's worth a small fortune. I mean, unfortunately, the article that you have, my original one, that when I was a kid, which I know this sounds crazy, but my dad basically killed himself to get the thing, and it was only $600 at the time because it had really fallen out of favor. In the late 80s or early 90s, people were really into the super pointy guitars with Floyd Roses and all of that kind of stuff. So mine unfortunately went missing sometime in the mid 90s in New York City, and I've been for it ever since. So after Slash played one of the You Could Be Mine video, way back, the prices on these old ones just started skyrocketing. So it wasn't until I was well into Stone Sour that I had the means to be able to replace it. And
that's cool, man.
Hang on one second. I got a really cool story.
Yeah, that's a really cool guitar. You don't see those very often at all.
So let's fast forward right here.
That's his brother.
Yeah. So Corey Taylor knew how much these guitars mean to me, and he somehow obtained this one and gave it to me as a Christmas present.
Wow, that is so
and it was probably the first time in I don't even know how many years that I actually kind of teared up,
That is incredibly kind, man. Wow.
I am still looking for that other one, man. I'm still looking for it. I will look for that guitar.
Hey, wait a minute. Where it got lost in New York? Let's put stranger things have happened. If you have, is there anything like significant about it where people would know it's your guitar?
Actually, yeah.
Talk about it, man. Let's put out a want ad right now.
Oh, I gotta grab this thing real quick because.
Yeah.
Okay, so vintage BC Riches, and I guess even like the later cheapo ones that they made later and stuff. They have these things called stringers on them, which hold it's a 3-piece body. So it has the neck through body, and it has what they refer to as the wings.
Mm-hmm.
Wings are attached to the neck by these things called stringers.
Okay.
On what type of wood the guitar is made out of. Sometimes the stringers are rosewood. They can be maple, like this one, or this guitar is solid koa, and so the guitar that I have just has the neck, or my original guitar just has the neck going through the body, but there's no stringers on it, which is very unusual for one of these guitars. Another way that you can tell that it's mine is so these are the original DiMarzio pickups that came with the guitar. There's a PAF and a super distortion. My guitar has a black Seymour Duncan Alnico Pro 2 in the bridge. The PAF in the neck, and all of the crazy wacky controls are disconnected in the guitar.
And what year is it? It's a 78 also?
No, I think it might be an 84, I think. But I've never seen another one like it, exactly like it. I put a post up of of me when I was like, a little kid playing the guitar on Instagram, I think yesterday. And I'm trying to locate this guitar, and I will do whatever it takes to get it back. I don't care. I don't even care if it's in pieces. I will put it back together with my bare hands.
Man, if anybody listening has that guitar or knows someone who has that guitar, it was probably acquired somewhere in New York City or the New York City area. Hit Christian Martucci up on Instagram and let him know. Is that the place to do it, Instagram? Yeah, let him know, man.
A message. I'm gonna be checking it.
And I'll give you a shout out on the show if you return that guitar. That would be really cool.
Yeah, I think if I get it, my friend, this guy, you might know him. His name's Peter Hodgson. He writes for Guitar World, and so he's an Australian guy.
No, I don't know.
He has another podcast, but he said that if I get the guitar back, I need to recreate the photo.
Oh, that would be cool, actually.
I have the Marshall amp that's in the photo, and
that's awesome.
Amp I'm pointing at it right now has been on every album I've ever played on. And
wow.
every other amp they had in the studio. So it's pretty cool. But this is the last one I'm going to show. I mean, I could spend hours doing this. I mean, I don't want to be like, oh, I'm some big guitar collector guy, but
dude, you've been playing for 40 something years. So like 30 something years. So
I don't really sell my stuff. I'm a bit of a hoarder.
yeah.
And I love all of my guitars. You know, I love the Deans. I love all these vintage. You know, I mean, any Gibson or whatever that I have back here, they're very old. You know, they're not like, you know, whatever new assembly. You know, and they're made out of materials that you're not allowed to make guitars out of anymore. Honduran mahogany, you know, Brazilian rosewood, that kind of stuff. So they're important to me, man. They're my friends, you know.
I totally get it, man. That's a really good way to put it.
Every guitar has songs in it.
That's
and
very cool.
Ask any guitar player, you pick up a Strat, you pick up a V, you pick up a Les Paul or Tele, whatever, you are going to play differently on that guitar than you do on any.
Totally.
And it's going to inspire you to write something that might be out of the box, out of your comfort zone. I think it's cool.
I'm very cool
and grateful that I have the means to be able to do that. So I just want to show you this one real quick.
That's a cool looking good.
Yeah, so Epiphone made a guitar in 1964, and it's an Epiphone coronet, but the paint job on it was called Silver Fox. My friends at a store in LA, when I'm there, which is very infrequently, I went in there one day and they had one, and I was like, whoa! I was like, that thing is crazy looking. And I remember I went home and I kept thinking about the guitar. I was like, man, I'm going to go back and buy that thing. You know, I went back and it was gone, and they're so hard to find. So I have a friend in LA. He's a luthier. His name's Keith Horn. He's just a fantastic.
Man, someone's more than one person has mentioned his name on this show before.
He has a company called Marvin Guitars, and I told him about the guitar, and he showed up at the Black Star Riders recording session and handed me this guitar. And it's just, I mean, it's outstanding, man. I mean, I don't know what he made it out of, but
so for people listening to the show, not watching the audio, let me describe it. It is it's like an SG, but instead of the points, it's flared out a little bit and they're rounded. So it kind of looks like a Strat that got shrunk on the.
If you look up 1964 Epiphone
coronet
Silver Fox and Google, you can see what it looks like. But I thought
single P90 looks like.
Yeah, that was very cool of him, and it's
really cool.
Nice when you're in the studio or whatever. I mean, you can use the same guitar on the entire song or whatever, but you're going to end up getting a better mix when you're recording guitars if you use one guitar for a rhythm and another type of guitar for the leads. You just are.
Cool.
I mean, you're not battling frequencies and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go put this back real quick.
Yeah, man, that's cool. I think it's so cool too that Corey Taylor got you that BC Rich Mockingbird. That is very nice of him, man.
Yeah. I mean, I would actually go as far as to say it might be, it's one of my most cherished gifts. I'm looking at a couple of other ones right now too.
But that's a real nice act of kindness, and that doesn't have, to have that kind of kindness, to be the recipient of that. That's not a common thing, not an everyday thing, I should say. Maybe common, but
real quick, I got to give a quick shout out to somebody else too.
Yeah, man, please.
I guarantee you, your listeners will have heard of. I told so I've known Eric Singer from Kiss.
Of course, yeah.
Since back in that baked potato time when I told him of all these dudes or whatever. And I don't really want to go into the story of why it was such an important thing to me, but I was really looking for like um to replace my 1977 Kiss lunchbox. And um, someone very near and dear to me was actually cremated, and had we put the
You
ashes.
put the ashes in there. Wow, that's intense, man.
Um, so he I think this was this my birthday? No, it was Christmas this year. I got a package in the mail from from a guy at a place called the Kiss Museum, which I'm assuming Eric Singer uh, talked to the guy. And uh,
Dude, that's an intense story, man, that your buddy was cremated to ashes. So that's a
uh,
1977 Kiss lunchbox.
yeah, and it's perfect condition. It still has the
That's crazy. That's probably like, oh my God, it still has the thermos, the Kiss thermos in there.
yeah. And
Wow.
I've got a bunch of Kiss stuff. I mean, I've got the original '77 dolls over here, and a bunch of, like, you can't see it right now, I'm pointing at them, but I have the original posters from the '70s and all of that stuff. They're all in frames in here, and
That's cool, man.
so for anybody who you know may have doubts as to the sincerity of what that band does or whatever, that was a incredibly sweet,
Yeah.
generous thing to do.
Yeah, that was very kind. Well, it also says a lot about you, man, that because people don't do that stuff. Just, you give something like that to somebody who's put that out to you. So
Yeah,
that's
a lot about him too.
no, it says a lot about both of you. I mean, that's a really cool thing to do. And it's like, you don't do that for just anybody. So I think that's really nice, man.
Yeah. So, you know,
Hey,
uh,
sorry, did you have something else? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
no, I'm just kind of rambling at this point.
No, you're not, man. Not at all. No. I tell people always get worried about that. And I say, man, it's only a problem if it's boring. It's not boring. So you're totally good, man. It's honest and sincere. That's the only thing I ask people to do. Be honest and sincere. If someone doesn't like that, they could change the channel. I mean, that's how I feel, honestly. You get people on there that are open enough to share some stuff with them. That's a gift that you're giving me. Period. End of conversation. If someone don't like it, then there's a lot of other shit to listen to.
Exactly.
Desert Island, huh?
I said there's room for everybody.
Yeah, man, totally. Desert Island discs, top 3. No particular order, just for today.
Oh, Desert Island Disc. Okay. Let's. I'm gonna go with Kiss Alive too.
Yeah, figured
Number one choice, because that was the first album I ever had. I'm gonna go with the Dead Boys, Young, Loud, and Snotty.
There you go. I knew you had to represent some punk stuff in there.
I'm gonna go, and let me see, man. I'm gonna go with "I Am the Blues" by Willie Dixon.
Wow, that's pretty diverse there, man. Very cool. Very cool.
I guess that would be it.
Yeah, man. Kiss, the Dead Boys, and Willie Dixon. That's like a very good assortment there, man.
It is what it is.
I like it, dude. Most important things that you've learned about yourself. Now you're clamming up because I'm asking you the
most important things I've learned about myself. I think I've just kind of, I don't know, man. Wow, that's a tough one, man. I might be stumped here. Most important things I've learned about myself. Honestly, man, the only thing I can tell you is I have gone with my gut on every decision I've ever made, regardless of how many people have tried to talk me out of it, regardless of how much money was involved or whatever, and it has never steered me wrong once. So if anything, the most important thing I've learned about myself is to trust my own natural instincts and not listen to other people. Because I think maybe Paul Stanley once said this, that when you listen to other people and you take their advice, if it fails, it's not their failure.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
that's
very
a
true.
pretty strong statement.
So you uh, don't shy away from this, because I know you don't like to sort of brag, but it's not a bragging thing. You have a pretty high level of confidence in yourself, and you sounds like you always have.
Um,
Because if you've always trusted your gut, that's what that tells me.
yeah, I mean, you know, I think that no matter what you believe in, you know, whether you're a religious person or, you know, whatever your thing is, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, you know, the universe as a whole is a very strange place. And you know, you're sort of given uh I probably sound like a crazy person, but
No, no, this is great, man.
given these unexplained there's an unexplained voice in your head that tells you what to do, that tells you what's right and what's wrong and all of that. You know, some people say it's a conscience. I guess that's a word for it. And you know, I just think that you need to listen to that. It's very important to listen to that, because that's something that can't be explained.
Mm,
It's not somebody's opinion. It's not somebody's, you know, it's not somebody's rules. It's an unexplained phenomenon,
yeah.
but um, you know, even trickles down into writing songs, man. You know, like a lot of times songs are just handed to you and you don't know where they come from. It's really interesting. And oftentimes the stuff that you really labor over to force out comes out sounding like what it is. It comes out sounding like an uninspired mess. So oftentimes, if you don't get that sort of, if you don't have that jolt hitting you or whatever, maybe you need to set the guitar down for a day or something, you know?
What I give you so much credit for is that you never deviated from that, in spite of having good times and having not so good times.
It's all I had.
What? But I give you a lot of credit for that. Honestly, man, that's something that I think something I believe that's something that comes from some messages you got as a kid.
Maybe.
Yeah, I do, because I've talked to guys that have this trust in the universe, and they've always had it, and it's been very natural to them. Like that's the norm.
You know, I don't know I don't
Yeah.
know how to explain it, man.
Yeah. I really dig what you said, man. Thank you.
Absolutely, some kind of driving force. I don't know what it is. I can't
No,
explain it. I don't want to explain it. I don't want
no,
to
man. I totally,
understand it. I don't question it. I just do what it tells me.
I 100% understand exactly what you're
Luckily, it
saying.
doesn't tell me to, you know, chop up people and put them in my.
Because it does tell some dudes that, but I don't know if they're listening to the right frequency there, man. um, Something about yourself people might be surprised to hear or might find a little odd.
Well, in my later years, the the older I get, the older my musical taste starts getting, and um, for a long time now, I'd always loved blues and stuff, but for like a long time now, man, I just sometimes the only music I listen to is like old country records,
Wow.
you know, like stuff that is just it's hard to um I don't know, it's kind of it's hard to explain, and I think in a lot of ways the reason why I listen to that stuff is because I don't hear an agenda in it. I don't hear like when somebody like Hank Snow or one of these guys sings to you about having a lousy day, I believe them. I believe that it's true. It's very it's very in tune with what I love about blues music and honestly what I love about punk rock music. It's as Mike Ness from Social Distortion once said, it's music that exposes the soul. And I truly believe that. And I mean, I know you might listen to Stone Sour or whatever and be like, what the hell is this guy talking about?
No, it's totally
But
something.
honestly, man, I love, love, love the old country guys. And quite honestly, I love their guitar players.
Yeah. Oh, there's some amazing, great,
Incredible.
Western swing
I mean,
stuff.
guys that just play circles around like the best metal
Yeah,
guitarists,
absolutely.
and without the benefit of things like distortion and I mean,
Or picks even.
yeah, I mean, you want to talk about respect. I mean, those guys, man, holy crap. I mean, I'd mentioned Glen Campbell earlier.
Great, amazing.
Look up Glen Campbell playing guitar on YouTube or whatever if you're
Yeah,
out.
it's
I mean,
incredible.
there's like a thing, a Glen Campbell shredding thing on YouTube where it's just like, I mean, you watch this guy play and your jaw just hits the floor. He was part of the Wrecking Crew. I mean, most people only know like Rhinestone Cowboy or Wichita Lineman or something like that. But I mean, this guy played on more records than anybody probably back then in terms of a guitar player.
Man, even at the end of his life, when he was suffering from dementia, they aired. I'm sure you saw the documentary where they aired some stuff he was doing, and it was like, holy crap!
They put the guitar in his hands, and you're just like, oh my god! Like this guy's like, I mean, how
Like a savant almost.
yeah, it's like how somebody can do that and not even remember who their kids are and stuff. It's unbelievable. And maybe there's some kind of universe thing driving that. You know what I mean?
No, I think there was absolutely.
Wow. How the hell do you explain that?
I tell you what I like about you, man, is that, and I vibe with it. You're really into the sincerity of what you're doing, and I'm like that. Like it's a really important thing to me. Like I hate bullshit and I really sniff it out and it just puts me off. And even if I'm not interested in what someone is saying, like I'm interested in what you're saying, but like, even if I'm not, if they're being genuine about it, man, to me, that's
I'll tell you what,
the quality human being.
people might listen to Stone Sour and only know the radio songs or whatever and have this idea that somehow there's something dishonest about that. There's nothing dishonest about it. We just happen to have a singer whose voice naturally sounds great on the radio, you know what I mean? And that wasn't planned either. I mean, you're talking about a guy that grew up with even less than I had,
Yeah.
I mean, so it's, you need to think about what people's motives are before you question what they're doing, because very much like me, if you knew where he came from, I mean, the idea that he would ever amount to anything, myself included, and I would even say some of the other members of the band too, there's nothing insincere about what we do.
Right.
Nothing insincere about it.
Yeah.
If that's what you think, that's cool. You're entitled to whatever, but I'll be the first to tell you you're wrong.
No, but that's the best when someone does something with that purity. It's just like it's magic. There's something really special about that because it takes, man, it's just courageous and it is genuine. So there's like, that's it. No comments needed, man. If you don't like it, that's fine. But
he's a great singer. Why shouldn't he have songs that?
Why shouldn't he have hits? Why shouldn't all of you guys have hits?
This is the only industry where people actually hate you for succeeding.
I don't, I think the good people, like all the people that I've talked to that are genuine, when they say, I'm so happy for my friends.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm an outsider that has been working in the music industry for almost 2 years. I'm not even in the industry. I don't want to say that I've been working with musicians, right? The amount of support I have gotten for this show, I am just humbled. It blows my mind.
Yeah, man.
I mean, and I'm just doing a little interview show. I mean, it's just
cool, man.
I mean, it's
really nice to hear, man.
I can't tell you. I mean, so it's just like, wow. So to me, I find most musicians are the successful ones are incredibly sincere, man. So I don't know who's
have to be the last in this thing, because if you're insincere with it, that first horrible tour you do when you come home and you sell your guitars to pay your,
Yeah.
food and stuff like that. You ain't gonna last long, you know. I mean, you really have to be a glutton for punishment.
No, totally, man. You gotta like this.
Yeah.
Who's had the biggest influence on you musically and also personally?
Man, personally, well, again, I probably sound like a broken record, but I'm gonna say as a guitar player, for sure, Ace Frehley is is everything to me. And the thing is, when you, of course, I've gotten older, and I understand that there's a lot of other music out there, and I've,
Sure.
later I've grown into, I love everybody from Jimmy Page, Angus Young, Malcolm, everybody, um, but I got to hand it up to the man that, that maybe I wouldn't be doing this if he didn't have such a profound influence on me.
It's great,
Yeah,
man.
I understand that. I believe me, man. I love guys like Randy Rhoads and Jakey Lee and all these people that I saw when I was growing up in the '80s every bit as much. But if I have to point at the one person, I'm gonna say Ace. You know,
That's awesome, man.
and Kiss in general, because I mean, when there were four guys from the East Coast that people don't understand, they weren't like some overnight sensation, man. Those guys traveled in a station wagon, uh, would get up dressed like that, for 3 album cycles before they before they
That's
broke.
amazing.
Who in their right mind would do that?
That's
You know,
amazing.
I mean, they obviously believed in what they were doing, regardless of what you might think nowadays, or whatever. But
Yeah.
I mean, '70s was a tough game, man. There were a lot of great bands. Some of the greatest bands in the world came out of the '70s. Hard rock bands, everybody from Aerosmith I mean, you name it.
Oh,
And you know, I don't know, man. It takes more than makeup to sell records.
yeah. I
Same
like
thing
that.
when I look at Slipknot, I mean, it's not just a show. I mean, you can't just put on a mask and get up on stage and sell lots of albums. You have to write some good music.
Yes. And how about personally, who's been the biggest influence in your life?
My wife,
That's very cool, man.
yeah.
How long y'all been together?
Oh man, we're about to celebrate our 14th wedding anniversary.
Awesome, man. Congratulations. Very cool.
I guess we've been together about 15, 16 years.
That's nice, man. Congratulations. That's a nice story. It's another interesting thing in I've never seen more guys happier with their spouses than in the music industry.
Well, I think for a lot of people for several years they would go out on tour and do a lot of drugs, do a lot of alcohol, that kind of thing. And then I think once people realize that doesn't work, some people still don't get it. But I mean, for the most part, I mean, I don't know too many musicians that are at my level or even much higher that will tolerate that sort of thing anymore.
No.
It never leads anywhere good. Um, I think that nowadays musicians realize that the one thing that keeps them out there and keeps them going is having something to come home to.
Yeah.
Maybe it might not be your wife, but maybe it's your
Yeah.
kid, like that. So yeah, I would say that she, to answer your question,
That's very cool, man. And I just saw something. Ace is the guy who turned me on to you. So what am I doing asking if you know Ace? I think Ace is the guy who hooked us up, right?
yeah.
So Ace, thank you for the hookup, man. Sorry about that. I usually acknowledge that in the beginning of the interview. So sorry, Ace. And I'm like, do you know Ace? Anyway, any hobbies or interests outside of music?
Well, I love a lot of people might be surprised with this, but I mean, there's certain things that I've had a lifetime supply of, and living in a big giant city is one of them. So I live way out in the mountains in the middle of nowhere, and
That's cool, man.
I do a lot of I do a lot of outdoor kind of stuff with my kids and everything.
That's really cool. I know how you feel like that, man, because I'm really appreciative of like nature, like birds and any kind of animals. Because you grow up in the Bronx, and the only animals you see are in the elevator with you.
Or
And, no, but I love like stupid like squirrel. Man, last week my wife and I were going to the gym in the morning, and we saw a cat. We like changed our plans. We had to rescue this cat. Like I love that shit, man. It's just nice.
you know, we live right on the river. I'm surrounded by trees and all kinds of awesomeness.
That's
And
awesome. Yeah, I know what it's like coming from the city too. It's like I totally get that
deer,
vibe.
rabbits, all that kind of stuff. And you know, a
Right.
lot of people are like, don't you miss living in, you know, somewhere like LA or Philly or New York City? It's like, no.
Yeah, I get that. I
I've been there, done that, you know, next.
totally get that, man.
So that's it.
Hey, two more questions,
Gotcha.
Christian, and I really appreciate connecting with you, man. Appreciate your sincerity with everything. Anything you wish you'd done differently, or anything you regret not doing?
Nope. Not a single thing. I mean, if anything that I think I might have regretted doing, I have to remind myself that I can't even think of like the worst thing that maybe I ever did or whatever that hasn't made me a better person.
Sure. Yeah, man.
So negative on that. No regrets.
No regrets. Do you know Bill Lanero?
What's up?
Do you know a guy named Bill Lanero? He's he's a guitar player in California. He has his guitar says no regrets or no regrets, but you know, Stu Ham, the bass player, he has a tattoo. It says no regrets.
Yeah, I think I saw, that's where I got that from. I'm pretty sure I saw a photo of it somewhere or something.
It's a big ass tattoo, like right on his whole, he's got big on, he's no regrets.
That's pretty hilarious.
Last question, man. Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional and how much is just a natural part of aging?
Man, I mean, nothing out of the ordinary, I don't think. I mean, I think that a lot of the things that musicians do, I mean, you have to understand, I grew up very fast because I was on my own at a very early age, a kid by myself, and you know, at the mercy of New York City when it was New York City. And
What was this in the early 80s?
no, this would have been no, because back then it was like we moved wherever we had to. But you know, we were mostly based out of Philadelphia. But I lived on my own in the early mid '90s in New York City when I was a teenager, and basically anything that I needed to get out of my system, I got out of my system during those years. And you know, for better or worse, I mean, I could sit here feeling sorry about it and all that kind of stuff, but honestly, I wasn't doing anything that anybody else wasn't doing.
Of course.
And you know, many of them were old enough to know better, and
Yeah.
so I mean,
You were a kid.
I don't feel bad about it. I mean, you know, you know, you give a kid bad things, and you know, put them in the middle of, you know, all this stuff, they're going to react like a kid. You know, I mean, you don't have
100%.
the maturity to deal with you know,
Maturity, coping skills, none of them.
yeah. So pretty much anything that I needed to get out of my system by the time I was like of, you know, legal drinking age and all of that kind of stuff, I didn't care about it anymore.
Very cool. And over the last 10 years, any changes in your personality?
I've mellowed out quite a bit, but I would say that becoming a father really changes your it lowers your tolerance for bullshit here to non-existent.
Yeah.
If you're doing it right. You know.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that all these petty things that all this the dramatic petty things that people bicker about and stuff are just completely, they just don't matter, you know.
Yeah, man. As long as you got your family and their health, everything is pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I care about two things. I care about my family and I care about playing music, and that's it. I don't care about anything else.
Awesome.
Although I am very grateful to have you know.
No, man, that's like totally appropriate.
But, when I say I only care about music, I mean, that means a lot. It means I care about the people I work with. I care about the producers, the engineers, the runners at the studio, everybody on the crew on the road, the bands we play with, the fans of those bands, Um, so I think that it runs a pretty full, the whole gamut there of, you know.
All good, man. Hey, listen, I want to tell people what you got going on and where they could check you out. And honestly, man, thank you. You're really happy to connect with you. You're a class guy. I really admire and respect everything you said, and admire and respect you as a person and a player, man. So thank you very much for giving me some good gifts this afternoon.
Oh, thanks, man. It's been fun.
Check out Christian with Stone Sour and Black Star Riders. Check him out online. It's Christian Martucci, Martucci. Black Star Riders has a new album coming out, Another State of Grace. It'll be out sometime in September. And right after that, they are off to do a pretty extensive European tour. How long is that tour going to last?
The last time I looked at it, I think it was like 7 weeks or something. But the last I heard, there were still dates being added, so it's going to be a while. I would imagine we're going to do a pretty thorough tour cycle, at least until Slipknot finishes doing their thing, and then it's time to meet back up with Corey and the fellows again.
Very cool. And Christian's solo EP called Negative Balance is coming out soon, and he's going to come back on this show, and we're going to talk about the record. I'll check it out. We'll talk about how he made it, why he made it, and we'll learn a lot about the songs, and that's going to drop in early August. So Christian will be on the show around that time, maybe a little bit after. Anything else I missed? You want to talk about social media channels or anything like that?
I mean, there's not a lot of Christian Martucci's out there. Certainly not a lot that look like me. I mean, you can pretty much you can find me pretty easily. I actually ended up disabling or getting rid of the Twitter account because I never really used it. I don't really have much to say. I like Instagram because it's just photos.
I know. I don't do
the last thing I want to see
Twitter
when I
either.
wake up in the morning is to log into something and just look at a bunch of people screaming at each other.
It's nauseating, man.
It's no fun. I mean, it's like, just go outside,
So I totally get it.
I like Instagram a lot. It's connected to a Facebook page, but I would say if you are interested in what I do, Instagram is probably the best way to sort of stay up on what I'm doing, because really the Facebook page is just connected to the Instagram. So I don't post anything on there that I don't post on Instagram. So
awesome. And of course, get on Black Star Riders and Stone Sour's email and social media list, and you can get more of Christian Martucci. You can get Martucci'd out.
Yeah, the last thing I just wanted to add, even though we had already talked about it, was if you're listening to this, please have a look. Whether you want to follow me or not is irrelevant, but please have a look at my Instagram account. There's a photo of me that I posted a couple of days ago of me with my childhood guitar. That the older I get, the more important it is to me to get this thing back. And I don't know if that makes any sense to people. It doesn't have to.
No, it doesn't have to, man.
Just please take a look at that photo. If you see that guitar, if you know who has the guitar, no questions asked. I just want it back. I will compensate whoever has it, and I will reward whomever gives me the information that leads to getting this thing back.
It's like
there is absolutely something in it for you if you're able to provide info that returns it to me.
Yes, and hit him up on Instagram with that. This is like Crime Stoppers for guitar.
Exactly. And forensic files.
Yeah, man. If you could help Christian, that would be really
left a tiny microscopic fiber or something. Something. You're out. Something, and I'm gonna get you.
Yeah, I would be thrilled to, and I'll give you a shout out on the show for sure, man. If you turn that guitar in, absolutely.
I'll make a big deal about it if I find the thing.
Yeah. Dude, thank you for everything. I wish you nothing but you and your family best of health and happiness. And I'm glad you come back on the show next week. Next month. I'll be looking forward to talking about your EP and listen to that myself. So thanks for everything.
Same to you. And as Gene Simmons would say, you're a powerful and attractive.
You're wrong on both cases, but I'll take it.
I called them like I sees them.
There you go, man. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Subscribe to the podcast at everyonelovesguitar.com and also the YouTube channel and wherever else we are. We appreciate it. Thanks again to Christian Martucci for spending time with us. I really appreciate it, and support Christian's music. Turn in his 84 BC Rich. We're on a mission. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. Christian, thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Hey, man, was this okay?